Everything you have been told about the European economic safety is a lie. Right now, as you watch this, the European Union is violently crushed by a Transatlantic Vise. On one side, the United States just broke a historical trade agreement, slamming Europe with massive tariffs that dropped our export surplus to a 5-year low. On the other side, China is flooding our borders with cheap technology to save their own collapsing economy. Europe can no longer export its way out of trouble. Today, I'm going to show you how the two biggest superpowers on Earth are systematically bankrupting the old European system. And more importantly, how the state can't save you. And how you must position your life, your money, and your mindset to survive the squeeze. For the last 70 years, Europe has relied on a very simple, very comfortable formula. We manufactured high-quality goods, we exported them to America and China, and we used those profits to fund our heavily subsidized welfare state. It was the golden era. And just last year, July of 2025, we thought the era was secure. The Turnberry Agreement was signed, which was supposed to guarantee a 15% ceiling on our goods. It made Europe feel safe. It made us believe that the old rules still applied. But that security was a mirage. The rules of the game were about to change overnight. In February 2026, America turned its back on Europe. The US Supreme Court struck down emergency tariff power, putting $133 billion in refunds at immediate risk. But instead of backing down and normalizing trade, the US retaliated. They invoke Section 122 of the Trade Act of 1974. This wasn't just a political maneuver, it was a direct attack on European industry. They slapped combined levies of 25% on European agriculture products. Suddenly, high-margin European export, things as simple and foundational as Gouda cheese, were priced out of the American markets. Almost overnight, European export to the US went into a 12% freefall. America essentially closed its door on us. But this is only half the story. If America locking its doors were the only problem, Europe could adapt. The real danger, the reason this is a vice crushing our economy, it's what's happening on the East Front. To understand the trap we are in, we need to understand a concept called industrial dumping. Right now, China is facing a massive domestic crisis. The property sector is collapsing, and the cities ain't spending money to keep their factories running and their people employed. The Chinese government is heavily subsidizing its overproduction of goods. They are making far more than they actually can use, and they sell those goods abroad for far less than they cost to produce. And this is the wise. America is taxing our goods so heavily we can't sell them, while China is subsidizing their goods so heavily we can't even compete within our own borders. We have already seen how this ends. Looking at the solar industry, today, approximately 95% of the installed solar panel in Europe comes from China. The dumping strategy virtually eradicated the domestic European solar manufacturing industry. We lost that war, and now it's happening to our crown jewel of the European economy, our cars. Chinese EV manufacturers are operating on razor-thin margins on roughly 4.3%. Because of state subsidies, they are aggressively exporting their excess into Europe. Models like BYD Auto 1 is being dumped on our market for under 25k. European car makers are structurally and mathematically incapable of competing with these prices, while maintaining our labor laws and environmental standards. The floodgates are open, and legacy European manufacturing industry are drowning. So, what does this mean for you? The old European export model is dead. The state is currently scrambling to erect protectionist barrier just to survive. which means the era of the government effortlessly funding our comfortable, subsidized lifestyle are coming to an end. When the macro economy becomes this fragile, you can no longer rely on macro system for your own stability. You cannot wait for politicians in Brussels to find this out. You must build your own micro economy. This is where true sovereignty begins. You must optimize your sovereign health. You must build unshakable mental resilience. And you must take aggressively control of your personal finance. Because when the external system fails, the only thing that will protect you is your internal foundation. The US and China is squeezing Europe from the outside. But what happens in Europe right now is even crazier. Next week, in part 2, I'm going to show you how this massive external pressure is causing a historic, irreversible wealth transfer right under our noses, draining capital out of old giants like Germany, and flooding it into a new, unexpected European powerhouse. You don't want to miss the geographic shift happening in that video. Hit subscribe, focus on your foundation, and until next time, stay resilient.